Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Miss Debbie StoryTime for Wednesday morning, May 6th already, and another beautiful sunny day. Yay! Today we're going to share a great story, and I'd be willing to bet at some point you've heard this story before, but it's certainly worth a second read, and it's called A Time of Wonder by Robert McClosky. And that's the name. I don't know if you would recognize it, but he did that great story that we did a few weeks ago called Make Way for Ducklings. So here's another one of his stories. And you can see up here this big gold sticker. Guess what? Not only do we love this book, but lots of other people did too. And they chose this to be their Caldecott winner. It won a prize for being such a wonderful book. So we're going to share this in just a moment. But before we do that, I thought we'd start out with a fun little song. And this song is all about this guy right here. Can you see him? His name is Mr. Munch. All right? And the song goes like this. I have a hungry friend. His name is Mr. Munch. And what he likes to do all day is gobble up his lunch. He likes the letter, oh, here's a good one. B, and things that start with B. And he is very happy when he goes munch, 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 crunch. So there goes the B for, let's see, baby or boy, balloon. That's a good letter. Let's try another one. I have a hungry friend. His name is Mr. Munch. And what he likes to do all day is gobble up his lunch. He likes the letter, oh, let's pick this one. M, and things that start with and he is very happy when he goes munch, 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 crunch. Let's put the M in there. And what about that letter M, the sound? I can think of one word that begins with that one, and it's someone who's very special in your life. Mom or mama. That's that M sound. Let's do another one. Okay. I have a hungry friend. His name is Mr. Munch, and what he likes to do all day is gobble up his lunch. He likes the letter T and things that start with t, t, t. And he is very happy when he goes munch, 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 crunch. How was that, Mr. Munch? Letter T, 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 t. Tiger. And tummy. Some good tea words as well. Tea, the wonderful drink that you drink maybe in the afternoon or before you go to bed at night. I love a nice cup of tea. All right, so that's a fun song, and we have lots of other letters we could do with it, like the letter, here's another good one, D, the d, d, d sound, like dad, or P for popcorn, eating a lot of popcorn. S for snake. And here's a J for jelly bean. All right, Mr. Munch, you chew on those. I think that's a good start for you. Okay, let's get started with our book, Time of Wonder. And this is a book written all about Maine. How many of you have been to Maine? It is a beautiful state. Pretty much anywhere you go is gorgeous, but it's really beautiful along the coast. Ooh, that many of you, huh? Good. Let's see what kind of story Robert McClosky has to share with us today. Here's the first picture. Looks like that. Beautiful. Out on the islands that poke their rocky shores above the waters of Penobscot Bay, oh sure, now the printer prints, you can watch the time of the world go by from minute to minute, hour to hour, from day to day, and season to season. You can watch a cloud peep over the Camden Hills 30 miles away across the bay. See it slowly grow and grow as it comes nearer and nearer. Oh, look what's underneath here. See it darken the hills with its shadow, and then see it darken, one after the other, the islands of Islesboro and Western Island and Pond Island, Hog Island, Spectacle Island, Two Bush Island, darken all the islands and all the islands in between until, what do you think is going to happen? You, on your island, are standing in the shadow, watching the rain beginning to spill down. See it? The rain comes closer and closer. Now you hear a million splashes. You even see the drops on the water, on the age-old rocky point, on the bayberry, and on the grass. Now take a breath. It's raining on you. Oh, look at the children. They stayed out till the last possible moment. Isn't that a pretty spot to be in? At the water's edge on a foggy morning in the early spring, you feel as though you were standing alone on the edge of nowhere. You hear a snorting sound from out of nowhere, and you know that, no, you are not alone. A family of porpoises is nearby, rolling over and over, having an acrobatic breakfast of herring under the bay. When we finish with our story today, you ask your big person who brought up this for you on the computer, whatever device you're using. There's a link in there, and you can learn a little bit more about porpoises from our website. Then, through the fog, you hear Harry Smith over at Blastow Cove starting the engine of his lobster boat and going out to pull in his traps. Suddenly, there's a ripple and a splash along the shore that makes you jump. It's the wake from Harry Smith's lobster boat, and you smile because you almost got your feet wet that time. The ripple disappears into the fog, and though you cannot see it, you know that it is silently gliding and gliding on its way. Then another distant, unseen splash, and the gulls and the cormorants on Two Bush Ledge, with their seabird sense of humor, start giggling and laughing because they too are suddenly surprised by the wake. Fun to think about birds laughing, isn't it? Wouldn't you love to be there, exploring around, seeing all those cool things, smelling all those wonderful smells? Back from the shore, the trees look like ghosts. The forest is so quiet that you can hear an insect boring a tunnel deep inside a log. And that other sound, not the beating of your heart, but the one that's like half a whisper. Oh my, listen to this. Is the sound of growing ferns pushing aside dead leaves, unrolling their fiddleheads, slowly unfurling and slowly stretching. I was out in my garden yesterday and noticing that the ferns are starting to pop up. They're so beautiful. And they do, I don't know if you can see it in this picture down here, it shows some little curly things, and that's exactly what they look like. Now the fog turns yellow. Oh my, what do you think is happening? What would make it turn yellow like that? Something big and round up in the sky. Yep, the sun. The bees begin to buzz and a hummingbird hums by. Then all the birds begin to sing, and suddenly, what do you think it's going to be? Suddenly, it's always exciting in a story, especially when I can't turn the page. The fog has lifted, and suddenly you find that you are singing too, with the blue water sparkling all around, with the blue water sparkling all around. Have you seen that before? When the sunlight hits the water and it looks like there's 1,000 million jewels on top of the water. At the height of the summer season, the bay is spotted with boats, with racing sailboats, with cruising schooners, with busy fishing boats, and with buzzing outboards. In the afternoon, you sail along the islands, pushed by gentle breezes. You sail close by Swain's Cove ledges, where a mother seal is nursing her baby. And then, at sunset, with porpoises puffing and playing around your boat, you come about and set a course for the island that is home. There they go. The rock on the point of the island is very old. It was fiery hot when the world was new. It was icy cold when the glacier covered it with grinding weight. This morning, the rock is warm in the sun and loud with a happy noise of children who have come to spend the day. They dive off the rock and swim and then stretch out, dripping in the sun, making salty young silhouettes on the old scars made by the glaciers. can see why this book was chosen to be a winner. Oh, I love the words that Robert McClosky wrote. Make some great pictures in your head. In the afternoon, when the tide is out, they build a castle out of rocks and driftwood below the spot where they had belly-whoppered and dog-paddled during the morning. Oh my, look at that structure. That's pretty interesting. In the evening, when the tide is high again, all your guests have gone. You row out around the point, feeling lonely, until an owl asks a question, and a heron croaks an answer. You know what kind of question that owl's going to ask? That's right. Ooh, ooh. A seal sniffs softly as he recognizes you, and the eider ducks and fishhawks all are listening. All are watching as you row. By the rock, you shine a light down into the water. There is a crab at the bottom, where you were playing this afternoon. He tiptoes sideways through the castle gate and disappears into its watery keep. Oh, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, my. You snap off the light and row toward the dock as the stars are gazing down, their reflections gazing up. In the quiet of the night, 100 pairs of eyes are watching you, while one pair of eyes is watching over all. Beautiful picture. As the days grow shorter and shorter, there are fewer and fewer boats on the bay, until at last only the fishing boats are left. The wind blows brisk from the northwest, rustling the birch leaves. The ferns change from green to yellow to brown. The robins are gone from the lawn and the garden, and the swallows have flown from their nests in the boathouse. To take their places, migrating birds from the north stop off to rest on their way south. The crows and the gulls fly over, fussing and feuding, and the hummingbirds visit the petunia patch. Mr. Billings flies over, looking for schools of herring. When he sees you waving on the beach, he dips the seaplane's wings in greeting. That's pretty cool. On some days, the wind is so strong that not even the sturdy fishing boats are out on the bay. Now is the time for being watchful, and other times there's not even a breath of wind to ripple the reflection of an unusual sky. Now is the time for being prepared. Oh boy. Do you think maybe they're worried about a storm coming? Let's find out. Over in Blastow's Cove, Harry Smith looks at the sky and says, "We're going to have some weather." On Eggemogan Reach, Clyde Snowman, oh that's a cool name, listens to the loons and says, "It's a-comin'." On Cape Rosier, Ferd Clifford listens to the sound of the bell off Spectacle Island and says, "She's gonna blow." On your island, you feel the light, crisp feeling go out of the air and a heavy stillness take its place. It's time to make a quick trip to the mainland for food and gasoline. Time to get ready. We're gonna have some weather. It's a-comin'. She's gonna blow. Take aboard groceries, take aboard gasoline. All of the talk is of the 100-pound anchors, 2-inch rope, 1-inch chains, and will it hold? And the weather. And when? Mr. Gray strokes his chin and says, "With the next shift of the tide." Hurry for home, for there's much to be done before the tide is too low. There they are, loading in all their supplies. Hurry, hurry, hurry. The ledges behind Pumpkin Island are covered with gulls, all sitting solemnly, faced in the same direction. There's no giggling and cackling at your wake splashes on the ledge today. This is no time for seabirds' sense of humor. We're gonna have some weather. It's a-comin'. She's gonna blow with the next shift of the tide. Home on the island, you pull in the sailboat, chain the motorboat fast to its mooring, pull the rowboats high off the beach. Mr. Smith hurries by with a boatload of lobster traps that he has been taking up. Over in Swain's Cove, Mr. Billings puts extra lines on the wings of his seaplane. Fishermen put extra lines on herring boats and scalloping boats. At Frankie Day's boatyard up Benjamin River and at Hal Vaughn's boatyard up Horseshoe Creek, men are working with the tide, pulling up sloops and yawls, ketches and motorboats, shackling chains, tying ropes, making things fast, battening down, and getting ready. Yikes. Oh my. Look at that picture. Certainly does look like there's a storm coming. Stack the groceries on kitchen shelves, bring in wood to build a fire, fill the generator with gas, then take one last careful look while the calm sea pauses at dead low water. A mouse nibbles off one last stalk from the garden and drags it into his mouse hole. A spider scurries across his web and disappears into a knothole. All living things wait while the first surge of the incoming tide ripples past Eagle Island, ripples past Dorrigo, past Pickering, past Two Bush Island. The bellboy off Spectacle Island sways slightly with the ripple, tolling, tolling, tolling the shift of the tide. Gently at first the wind begins to blow. Gently at first the rain begins to fall. I suspect it's not going to stay gentle. Oh, look at that sea now. That's a different sea to look at. Wow, look at those waves. Suddenly the wind whips the water into sharp, choppy waves. It tears off the sharp tops and slashes them into ribbons of smoky spray. And the rain comes slamming down. The wind comes in stronger and stronger gusts. A branch snaps from a tree, and a gull flies over, flying backwards, hoping for a chance to drop into the lee of the island. Out on the channel, a tardy fishing boat wallows in the waves, seeking the shelter of Buck's Harbor. Oh, yikes. Hurry up, fishing boat. Get to safety. That is not a good place to be right now. Oh my, look at that, yikes. A tree snaps, and above the roar of the hurricane you see and feel, but do not hear it fall. A latch gives way, and people and papers and Parcheesi games are puffed hair over eyes across the floor, while Father pushes and strains to close and bolt out the storm. Somebody didn't close the door all the way, and the wind came in. Yikes. Mother reads a story, and the words are spoken and lost in the scream of the wind. You're glad it is a story that you've often heard before. Then you all sing together, shouting, "My eyes have seen the glory," just as loud as you can shout, with dish towels tucked by door sills just to keep the salt spray out. So I expect this is something they've done before. The moon comes out, making a rainbow in the salt spray, a promise that the storm will soon be over. Now the wind is lessening, singing loud chords in the treetops, lessening. It hums as you go up to bed. I think the storm is over. Oh, look at that. Isn't that a pretty picture? Moonlight on an ocean is just one of the most beautiful things. Still some waves coming in. And the great swells coming in from the open sea say shh, shh. as they foam over the old rock on the point. Lessening, the wind whispers a lullaby in the spruce branches as you fall asleep in the bright moonlight. Oh my, looks like some trees fell down in all that wind. The next morning you awakened to an unaccustomed light made by a frosty coating of salt on all the windows, and the out of doors in the gentle morning lie reminders of yesterday's hurricane. Fallen and broken trees are everywhere, on the terrace, on the path, blocking your way at every turn. You cannot walk on familiar paths and trails, but you can explore the tops of giant fallen trees and walk on trunks and limbs where no one has ever walked before. That's an interesting perspective on that experience. Oh, my, look at that treasure hidden underneath one of those big old trees. Looks like lots of cool shells. Then, seeking out still more places where no one has ever walked before, you explore the jagged holes left by the roots of a fallen tree. Under an old tree by the house, you discover an Indian shell heap, and poking in the thousands of snow-white clamshells, so old they crumble at a touch, you realize that you are standing on a place where Indian children stood before the coming of white man. Oh, look at their sunflower garden. Yikes. Those are big flowers. Now it's time for one last chore of hauling seaweed from the beach to fertilize the garden. Spreading the seaweed with its iodine smell, you're pleased to see that the storm-flattened sunflowers are once more lifting faces to the sun. And here are the hummingbirds, humming a hymn to the morning, making a final round to the last of the petunias. It's time for hummingbirds to leave the island. I didn't know they use seaweed for fertilizer. Interesting. Oh, they're not the only ones heading home. It's the end of another summer. It's time for you to leave the island too. Goodbye to clams and mussels and barnacles, to crows and swallows and gulls and owls, to sea urchins and seals and porpoises. It's time to reset the clock from the rise and fall of the tide to the come and go of the school bus. Pack your bag and put in a few treasures, like some gull feathers, a few shells, a book of pressed leaves, a piece of quartz that came from a crack in the old rock on the point. And children, don't forget your toothbrushes. How beautiful. And then all aboard and around Deer Island, past Birch Island, past Pumpkin Island, and across Agamogan Reach for the last time this year. Take a farewell look at the waves and the sky. Take a farewell sniff of the salty sea. A little bit sad about the place you're leaving, and a bit glad about the place you're going. Excuse me. It's a time of quiet wonder. For wondering, for instance, where do hummingbirds go in a hurricane? I was thinking that myself. Maybe they find a hole in a tree and hope that they pick the right one. And that's the end. Isn't that a great story? Again, I can see why it won an award. Well, thank you for joining me for story time today. That was a good one. And I will see you all next time.